All right, all right, all right. We're doing a little evening testing. This is your girl, Friday Jones, and let me stop this little background music. What is today? It is February 4th. I'm just doing a little pop-up. There's so much going on. I wanted to just do a quick in and out. We're going to cover a lot of information. For those of you who are not following me, you can follow me at I am Friday Jones on pretty much all social media, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, although I'm about to leave TikTok. My official launch for what I'm trying to do with this information is going to be May 20th, but I had to go live. Hopefully folks will catch the replay tomorrow, but I will make sure that I posted links out to my social media. So let me share my screen. I'm going to share my screen right here. We're going to get into California legislation tonight. I'm going to talk about SB 79. And SB 79 was passed in October by, I think he's an assembly member, Wiener. He's running for office. Not a fan of his. But if you go here, I'm going to start with the city of Los Angeles, because the city has what it terms right here, these transit-oriented communities, okay? Transit-oriented communities program. Basically in 2016, the city of LA, or I should say, this was a ballot measure JJJ. It actually passed to increase density from 35 to 80% of projects within a half mile of transit stops, right? And then we also had this CHIP program in 2025. So kind of in a way lined up with what the state is going, updating local density and giving bonuses for mixed income incentive programming to basically developers. And if we go here, this is what the city of LA passed the ordinance, basically saying that it's going to require certain residential development projects provide affordable housing and comply with prevailing wages, local hiring, and labor standards. It also requires the city to assess the impact of community plan changes on affordable housing and jobs. And it wanted to create an incentive program right here for developers near major transit stops. Now, if you know anything about LA, there's what is called the grid in Black LA. The grid is like the 110 freeway on the east side. You've got the 105 freeway, I believe, on the south. You've got the 10 freeway on the north. And then you have the 405, but the 405 really is on the west side. And what has happened is that along the 10 freeway on what is Exposition Boulevard, we have rails. That train goes pretty much from downtown over by USC all the way to the beach in Santa Monica. We also have train lines that, of course, are going down the infamous Crenshaw Boulevard, and Crenshaw Boulevard forced an underground stop at Leimert Park. There's an overpassing stop on La Cienega, but on a lot of the other streets, there are not overpassing or underground train systems. We also have the city getting into this citywide housing incentive program. And you can look these things up. All these things are researchable. Basically, this is the part I want people to pay attention to. Okay, this resident protection ordinance requires all affordable units provided in exchange for development incentives available in these programs to be subject to a 99-year affordability covenant with limited exceptions. And I wanted to point that out because why? Because I'm a modern reparationist, that this is what I do. When it comes to reparations in the state of California, which was leading the pack, California was out there way in front. We had all these other municipalities. We had Black folks across America, even Brother Gipp, OG rapper, talked about what California and its reparations were doing. And the fact that there's a 99-year ordinance for developers lets me know that California can absolutely do 100 years worth of programming when it comes to state reparations for American freedmen, period, full stop. These programs, again, call for high density. They're giving bonuses to developers to build affordable housing. And I can't get this quite on camera. Let me go back to here because I want to put myself in the middle. I can't go quite to camera, and my camera gets weird about picking stuff up. Damn it. And not picking stuff up. I thought if I got closer, there we go. You see a little map right there? A little map right there. That map is from a book called Inventing Paradise, The Power Brokers Who Created the Dream of Los Angeles. And the book is written by Paul Haddad. And that photo here is called A Study in Black and White, Spread of the Negro Race Shown by Dark Spots, basically calling it proper restrictions, the only safeguards. So to safeguard white folks, the underfunding in the dark spots, described as the Negro race, basically kept the Fremont district white. The map bear the handiwork of, we don't know exactly who, but this is from the 1920s in Los Angeles. And if you were to overlay the transit systems over this mapping, you're going to see that a lot of Black areas were affected. There are parts of Los Angeles that when it was built, it almost was sort of built like a plantation where like the white people live in the big house. And then you got like the outhouse where it was all residential. It wasn't commercial in parts. It wasn't made for business corridors. We know that there was the Central Avenue corridor, which was historic for Black people, and nightlife is something that was covered in the city of LA's reparations report. But these corridors with this Prop 79 becomes important because Black people still largely live where Black people lived in the 1950s and 60s. We may be in parts of Culver City, we may be in other parts of the city, but largely Black pockets have maintained where it is that we live in the city. And so I'm going to go back here to adding back my share screen. We're going to put the share screen back up here, and we're going to move on into the bill a little bit. And I feel like I'm giving you guys a lot of information, but like I said, this is a quick pop-up. I kind of wanted to test this out, especially since you guys know the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants. I have a producer. When I was doing Politics in Black, there was a whole production team. And so this is kind of me and my 5 fingers working this out for you. But I wanted to get into this, and this comes straight from the California legislative website. You can go to legislature.ca.gov, and you can pull up any bill that's sort of in the process or not in the process. Whether it's been passed, you can get the history, you can see who voted. We're going to get into the votes because I think the voting on this is interesting. Senate Bill 79. This bill was approved by Gavin Newsom on October 10th, 2025. So last year in Libra season, this bill was approved. And basically the bill is going to require the state to reimburse local agencies and school districts for some of these costs. But the bulk of this bill is about the housing shortage, acute and chronic, particularly in areas with access to robust public transit infrastructure. And you got to remember, the robust transit infrastructure in Los Angeles is fairly recent, and COVID really negatively impacted the ridership. I don't think that the ridership has bounced completely back, but this is called building effective long-term strategy for building wealth and creating pathways to financial security. I'm not sure who that is for. This goes on to say public transit systems require sustainability funding to provide reliable service, especially in areas experiencing increased density and ridership. But the state does not invest in public transit service in the same degree as it does in roads, and the state funds a smaller portion of the state's major transit agency operating costs. So this whole thing is to incentivize developers while increasing the ridership in this infrastructure, because the infrastructure has already been built, right? And so basically, they excluded the fast rail. Everybody knows that we've been building a fast rail here forever, and it's been costing a great deal of money, and we'll get into that. But the areas that are affected are what they call Tier 1, meaning transit-oriented development stops within an urban transit county. That's LA County, people. That's LA County. That's not out there in Bakersfield. That's right here in Los Angeles. Tier 2 transit-oriented development stops means transit-oriented development stops within an urban transit counting that excludes Tier 1. But what they're doing is they're including bus services. So even if you don't have a train near you, this legislation is going to ultimately affect you. A housing development project should be allowed to be transit-oriented housing on sites zoned for residential, mixed, or commercial development within a 1/2 or 1/4 mile transit-oriented development stop. So here because I used to walk to the train, what that means is the stops in LA are about 1.5 miles apart. So they're basically saying the space up to in between a stop, if you will, can basically have the imposition of these local zoning laws where they want density of at least 30 dwelling units per acre, okay? On average, the total floor space for proposed units in these housing development projects shall not exceed 1,750 square feet, but they want up to 120 dwellings per acre for the Tier 1s. Do you know how much building and development that is? Do you know in areas where we don't have business corridors, where people currently in the city of Los Angeles can't just like go from their house to work? A lot of us may work within a 7 to 10 mile radius, but it takes an hour to get that 7 to 10 miles in the morning. And I do not see this as being a good thing. This is basically cramming people into urban areas because you gave them trains. And I guarantee you it's going to be small property owners. It's going to be people who maybe have a house on a lot that is a R3, which allows for multiple units, that are going to be impacted. And you're going to have these developers swooping down when we can't buy affordable houses. And basically where there is one house, they're going to be putting at least 5 units onto a lot. We had the city of LA, thank God, actually issue a letter basically saying they've assessed the impact of SB 79 and they are not supporting it. They are instructing the Department of City Planning to initiate the development of an ordinance basically to counter effect and delay SB 79 in all eligible areas, including high fire zones. So now they're being responsive to the fires that happen here in Los Angeles. But at the end of the day, the city is saying this is not good for residents, because residents and people who live in LA raise all kinds of hell. They raise all kinds of hell to say we don't want this in our community. They were not happy with the ordinances that came through the city in 2016, basically giving developers all of these gains. And you see these gains last for 100 years. When these developers were coming to not city council meetings, were coming to neighborhood council meetings and trying to get neighborhood councils to say yes to what they had going on, they were talking about income being extracted from this community for 100 years. So they were not lying when they came to the Black people asking us to basically say yes to these projects. And now if you drive down Crenshaw Boulevard looks very, very different. It has changed a lot over the past 5 years. Then we got Gavin Newsom. He posted this today. Infrastructure is about abundance. This woman is from Bakersfield. She's talking about the California high-speed rail project, which, according to her, is supposed to boost the economy by linking jobs and opportunities to the Central Valley and statewide. And just so we are clear, I want to put some maps on here. This is about 100 miles of train that has been done to date. And the train is supposed to go all the way up to San Francisco. So let me type that Francisco. Okay. So you can see that it's only maybe a third, not even a third, maybe a third. I think under a third. It's supposed to be 463 square miles from here to here. It's like this. According to the LA Times, y'all, according to the LA Times, this is the headline. It cost $100 billion for a quarter of the 463 miles. It's cost taxpayers $100 billion. And this legislation, or the funding for this, which was supposed to be completed, this fast rail was supposed to be completed in 2020. This was literally voted on originally, I want to say 20 years ago. 2008. We're about to be at 2028. It's 2026. We're 2 years away from 20 years. So this all started in 2008. And I say this to say, these people keep telling us there's not money for reparations. They want us to think that, I don't know what they want us to think. I think they think that we're stupid. I think they think that we're not paying attention. And this is a new era. And I don't think everything can be resolved by government. I absolutely, we have Dr. Claude Anderson. We have other folks that have told us that we've got to build our own economy. And I firmly believe that. But the fun part of this for me, do you all remember when the California Legislative Black Caucus told us that they could not split their votes? They did not want to split their votes. And everything that they did, they were going to vote lock and step. That's a bold-faced lie. We're going to look at the voting on this here fast rail. So this thing initially came through the Senate Housing Department. I don't see any of the Black folks here in terms of voting. Then it went to the Senate local government, right? And then we had Choi. She's from LA. She voted no. I'm glad she voted no. She's probably tired of the spending. Weiner was a yes. This same person who wrote this SB 79 was a yes on his bill, obviously. We go here. Richardson is down here in LA. She was an aye. She voted yes for this to pass through appropriations. So she's on the appropriations committee where bills go to be killed. She voted yes. Then up here, we have, again, Richardson. She's on Senate appropriations. She voted yes. Then we get up here and it gets a little fun and it gets a little interesting because, again, we have Choi. She voted no. She's not Black, but she's in LA, so I'm talking about her. Smallwood Cuevas was a no vote, so a no-show no vote. Richardson, again, was a yes, right? Weiner, who wrote this nonsense, was a yes. We have, now we're in the Assembly House Community Development. Wilson, who was the former chair of the CLBC, voted yes. She was an aye. So this is her vote right here as an aye. And then if we go up here, Wilson, again, she's an aye. She's on the Assembly Local Government Committee. She was an aye. We get up here, and El Harwi, and I don't know how many of you saw her in the Martin Luther King parade. She could barely say the word reparations, but she was an aye. And then we have Aguilar Carey, who's the person who put Senator Bradford's bills into the suspense file. She was basically neutral. She didn't vote. And we had Mike Gibson didn't vote. Tina McKenna didn't vote. Where is Isaac Bryan? Oh man. Oh, well, Bonta, interesting. He's pretty up there in the party. But my point in showing you guys this is that apparently they don't have to vote as a block unless they're telling pissed off constituents that they have to say something. So they just say words out loud, because apparently they were fine enough to there to be ayes, nays, and then no votes in between. And I just think that is important for us to see, so that we know what we're dealing with. We have elections coming up in primaries coming up. We have primaries coming up. These people are going to be out here asking for our votes. They're going to be out here saying whatever they say. Remember, and I heard this from, his last name is Ike. I think his name is David Ike. He's from the UK, but he basically said in America, there is no contract for these legislators when they get in office. For all the people that vote for them, there is not a contract with the American people. And so we're voting, and people get to say that they're doing reparations for a project that they're working on when they have ultimately just brokered a class action settlement as a representative of the state, as opposed to being a representative of the people. And then they want to be patted on the shoulder for brokering a deal for $5 million in oil fields, but they can spend $100 billion on a quarter of the way of a project that has taken over 20 years to do, while giving developers 99 years worth of incentives in the state of California. And then they're coming into our heavily dense, populated urban areas after building these trains. Now they're coming in trying to get our properties. Remember who's voted for what. Remember who's doing what. Remember who's being neutral instead of a no. Because sometimes when you're neutral, it's a yes. Sometimes it winds up being, unfortunately, a yes. That's all I have for you all tonight. I am Friday Jones. This is just a pop-up. I am going to be launching my show, Friday Jones Uncensored, in March 20th. I think that's a Friday. That's going to be the first show. I've been working on this. I'm going to get the production value up just a bit, because y'all can clearly see I'm on the free StreamYard. I don't care. When I'm moved by these pop-ups, I'm going to come and I'm going to give you guys just a quick 20 to 30 minutes of information. I hope that you take it. I hope that you activate. I don't know what you do with legislation once it's passed, but if you're in the city of LA, you have the city is actually standing up against the state with regards to this, because SB 79 actually supersedes what the state has going on. And so again, this was signed October 10th by Governor Gavin Newsom. You know, we've got to make the demands. We got to show them where they've done things before, who they've done it with. This is a ploy to make developers more money at the expense of people who already cannot afford to live in these areas. So know what's going on in community. Peace and reparations. Until next time.